A billionaire was standing in the middle of the largest toy store in Chicago when he suddenly froze. Right in front of him, a 6-year-old girl in worn-out clothes nervously placed a few crumpled bills on the counter and said, "Sir, I want to buy a dad." At first he thought it was nothing more than a child's innocent words. But when he heard the reason behind them, his heart completely shattered. And in that very moment the billionaire made a decision that would change his life forever. Before we continue, tell us what time it is and where you're watching from, subscribe and hype, because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. The words struck Marcus Wellington like a punch to the chest. He stood frozen behind the counter of his flagship toy store, staring down at the tiny girl with braided hair and scuffed sneakers who had just asked the most heartbreaking question he'd ever heard. "Mister, I want to buy a daddy," the little girl repeated, her voice small but determined. She couldn't be more than 6 years old, her dark skin glowing under the store's bright lights, wearing a coat 2 sizes too small with buttons hanging by threads. In her small fist she clutched a crumpled $5 bill and some loose change. Marcus's throat went dry. "What did you say, sweetheart?" "A daddy," she said again, placing the money on the glass counter with careful precision. "My big sister Emma says this is the biggest toy store in Chicago. She says you can buy anything here, so I want to buy a daddy." The other customers in the store had stopped browsing. The usual sounds of children laughing and parents chatting faded into an uncomfortable silence. Marcus felt every eye in the store watching this moment unfold. "Honey, we only sell toys here," Marcus managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. "We don't sell people." The little girl's face scrunched up in confusion. "But I need one. My mama went to heaven last year and my sister works all the time. I see other kids with their daddies at the playground. They look so happy." Marcus felt his eyes burning. Behind the little girl he noticed the store had gone completely quiet. Even the teenage employees had stopped stocking shelves to listen. This wasn't just any random request from a child. This was pure desperate hope wrapped in the most innocent package imaginable. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, coming around the counter to kneel at her level. "Sophie," she said, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. "Sophie Anderson. And you're the store man, right?" "Yes, I am." Marcus's voice cracked slightly. "Tell me about your sister." Sophie's face brightened a little. "Emma is the best sister ever. She's really pretty and smart and she takes care of me all by herself. But she's always tired because she works a lot. She leaves before I wake up and comes home after I'm supposed to be asleep. Sometimes I hear her crying at night." Marcus's heart clenched. He thought about his own childhood, about the gaping hole his father's death had left when he was just 8 years old. He remembered his younger sister Sarah asking their mother similar questions, wondering why other kids had daddies and they didn't. "Sophie, having a daddy isn't something you can buy," Marcus said gently. "It's something that happens when people care about each other." Sophie looked down at her money, disappointed. "So my $5 isn't enough?" "It's not about money, sweetheart. It's about—" Before Marcus could finish, the store's front door burst open with a jingle of bells. A young woman rushed inside, her face etched with panic. She wore a waitress uniform from the diner down the street, her natural hair pulled back in a hasty bun that had come loose from running. "Sophie," she called out, scanning the store frantically. "Sophie, where are you?" "Emma," Sophie waved. "I'm here. I'm asking about getting us a daddy." The woman, Emma, froze when she spotted her little sister standing next to Marcus. Her eyes moved from Sophie to the money on the counter to Marcus's face. The pieces clicked together instantly. "Oh no," Emma whispered, rushing over. "Sophie, what did you do?" "I tried to buy a daddy," Sophie explained. "But the store man says you can't buy them, they just happen, I guess." Emma's face went through a dozen emotions: embarrassment, heartbreak, exhaustion, and something that looked like defeat. She knelt down and pulled Sophie into a tight hug. "Baby, I'm so sorry," she whispered into Sophie's hair. "I'm so sorry." Marcus watched this scene unfold, feeling like an intruder on an intensely private moment. There was something about Emma's fierce protectiveness and obvious love for her little sister that reminded him painfully of his own sister who had died in a car accident when she was 23. The same stubborn independence, the same determination to handle everything alone. "I have to get back to work," Emma said, standing up and avoiding Marcus's eyes. "Come on, Sophie, Miss Patricia is worried sick." But Sophie, now, as they turned to leave, Marcus made a decision that would change all their lives forever. "Wait," he called out. "Please." Emma turned back, her eyes wary and tired. "We don't need charity, Mr. Wellington." Marcus Wellington. He approached carefully, aware of the other customers still watching. "And I'm not offering charity. My father died when I was 8. My little sister used to ask questions like Sophie just did." Emma's expression softened slightly, though her guard remained up. "I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry Sophie bothered you." "She didn't bother me, she reminded me of something important." Marcus pulled out his business card, then hesitated. "I know you have to get back to work, but if you'd ever be willing to talk about what families need, about programs that could help, I'd like to hear your perspective." Emma stared at the card in his hand but didn't take it. "Why?" "Because I've been running toy stores for 7 years and I just realized I don't understand the first thing about what kids actually need." Marcus's voice grew quieter. "And because Sophie reminds me of my sister, and I wish someone had helped us when we needed it most." Emma looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for the angle, the catch. Finally she took the card. "I don't need pity," she said firmly. "I'm not offering pity, I'm offering a conversation. If you're interested." Emma slipped the card into her apron pocket without comment, took Sophie's hand and left. Marcus stood watching them go, Sophie's crumpled $5 still sitting on the counter. Around him the store slowly came back to life, customers resuming their shopping, employees returning to their tasks. But Marcus couldn't move. He picked up the money Sophie had left behind, smoothing out the wrinkled bill, and thought about Sarah. About the questions she'd asked that no one had good answers for. About the struggles his mother had faced alone. About the chance to maybe finally honor Sarah's memory by helping another family navigate the same impossible waters. His store manager, Carol, approached quietly. "That was heartbreaking." "Yes," Marcus said, "it was." "Are you okay?" Marcus looked down at the $5 in his hand, a child's entire savings, offered up in desperate hope. "I don't know, but I think I need to try to be." That night, Marcus sat in his empty penthouse apartment, overlooking the Chicago skyline. The space was expensively furnished but hollow, decorated by a professional, because Marcus had never cared enough to choose furniture himself. He ate dinner alone at a table meant for 8, surrounded by silence. He thought about Sophie's question, about Emma's exhausted face, about the weight of grief and responsibility he saw in her eyes that he recognized from his own mirror. His phone buzzed, a text from his assistant. "Board meeting moved to 9 a.m. tomorrow. Quarterly reports attached." Marcus deleted it without reading the reports. For the first time in 7 years the numbers didn't matter. What mattered was a 6-year-old girl who thought love could be purchased. What mattered was proving her both wrong and right. You couldn't buy family, but maybe, just maybe, you could build the conditions that helped families thrive. Marcus pulled out his laptop and started researching. Community programs, family support initiatives. What other companies were doing to serve struggling families. Everything he found felt hollow and performative. Corporate charity designed to look good in press releases, not actually help people. He needed something different, something real. He needed Emma's perspective. Marcus just hoped she'd call. Emma's alarm buzzed at 4:30 in the morning, the same harsh sound that started every day. She rolled out of the narrow bed she shared with Sophie, careful not to wake her little sister. In the dim light filtering through their apartment's thin curtains, she could see Sophie's peaceful face, still clutching the stuffed rabbit their mother had given her before she died. The apartment was tiny, just one bedroom, a small living area, and a kitchen with appliances that worked half the time. The water heater groaned like a dying animal. The radiator clanked like someone was hitting it with a wrench. The refrigerator hummed so loudly Emma could hear it from the bedroom. But the rent was $1,200 a month, and it was theirs, and Emma was determined to keep it that way. She grabbed her cleaning supplies and the uniform for her first job from the closet, moving quietly through their morning routine. By 4:50 she was out the door, walking 3 blocks to the train station in the pre-dawn darkness. By 5 o'clock, she was on the Red Line heading downtown to her first job of the day. The office building was 50 stories of glass and steel, filled with lawyers and investment bankers who made more in a month than Emma made in a year. She spent 3 hours cleaning their offices, emptying trash cans, vacuuming carpets, and scrubbing bathrooms. The work was honest, but it was invisible. Most days, she never saw the people who worked in these offices. They arrived after she left, lived their important lives in the spaces she'd cleaned, and went home to families who had never worried about choosing between rent and groceries. Emma found evidence of their lives in the trash. Take-out containers from restaurants where a single meal cost more than Emma spent on groceries in a week. Discarded drafts of documents about mergers and acquisitions, numbers so large Emma couldn't comprehend them. Family photos on desks showing smiling people in front of beach houses and ski lodges. By 8:30, Emma was back on the Red Line, heading to the diner where she worked the lunch shift. She changed into her waitress uniform in the tiny employee bathroom, splashed water on her face, and tied on her apron. This was her favorite job, even though it paid the least. She liked the customers, mostly construction workers, shop owners, and elderly people who treated her like family. They knew her name, asked about Sophie, and left tips when they could afford to. "Morning, Emma," called out Ruth, the head cook. Ruth was in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair and hands that moved with the efficiency of someone who'd been working kitchens for 30 years. "How's that little sister of yours?" "She's good," Emma replied, tying her apron around her waist. Then she paused, setting down the sugar dispenser she'd been about to fill. "Actually, Ruth, she's not good. She ran away from Miss Patricia yesterday afternoon. Took the bus downtown by herself. She's 6 years old and went to the Wellington Toys flagship store." Ruth's eyebrows shot up. "That big fancy place on Michigan Avenue. What on earth for?" Emma felt her throat tighten. "She tried to buy a daddy." Ruth's face crumpled with sympathy. "Oh honey, the store owner was kind about it at least." Emma pulled Marcus's business card from her apron pocket, where it had been sitting since yesterday. "He gave me this, said he wants to talk about children's programs, said he'd pay me for my time." Ruth took the card, her eyes widening. "Wellington Toys, Emma, this is Marcus Wellington, the billionaire. His family owns half of Chicago." "I know." Emma tucked the card back into her apron. "Which is why I'm not calling him. Rich people don't help people like us without wanting something in return." "Maybe," Ruth said thoughtfully. "Or maybe he's one of the good ones. My cousin worked for his father's construction company back in the day. Said Thomas Wellington was the fairest boss he ever had. Paid good wages, treated workers with respect. His father's dead. Doesn't mean the son didn't learn from him." Ruth handed Emma a plate of eggs and bacon. "Table 4. And Emma, sometimes people surprise you. Might be worth having the conversation." The morning rush kept Emma busy until 2 o'clock. She served coffee, took orders, delivered food, cleared tables, smiled at customers, even when her feet ached and her back screamed. She made $87 in tips, which she carefully folded into her apron pocket. Every dollar counted. At 2:30, she changed into jeans and a t-shirt and took the bus to her third job, stocking shelves at Harrison's grocery. She worked until 10 at night, her hands growing numb from the cold of the refrigerated sections, her legs trembling from exhaustion. Miss Patricia, their elderly neighbor, picked Sophie up from school every day and watched her until Emma got home. The sweet woman refused to take money, saying Sophie was company and she was happy to help. Emma hated imposing on her, but she had no choice. When Emma finally made it home that night, her feet aching and her back screaming, she found Sophie already asleep in their shared bed. Miss Patricia sat on their worn couch, knitting. "She ate all her dinner," Miss Patricia reported. "Did her homework. Drew you a picture, it's on the fridge." "Thank you so much, Miss Patricia. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Nonsense. Sophie's a delight." Miss Patricia gathered her knitting. "But Emma honey, that child needs you, not just at bedtime. She needs you there when she gets home from school, when she's doing homework, when she's scared or sad or excited about something." "I know," Emma whispered. "But I can't be there and pay rent. I can't be there and keep the lights on. I can't be there and put food on the table." Miss Patricia stood, patting Emma's arm. "I know you're doing your best, sweetheart, but sometimes our best isn't enough, and we need to ask for help." After Miss Patricia left, Emma walked quietly to the kitchen to see Sophie's drawing. It was taped to the refrigerator, a crayon picture of 2 stick figures holding hands, one big, one small, both with brown skin and curly hair. both with frowns, at the top in Sophie's careful first-grade handwriting. Me and Emma, we are sad because we don't have a daddy. Emma sank into a chair at their small kitchen table and let herself cry. Quiet tears that she'd been holding back all day, all week, all year. She pulled out her calculator and the stack of bills that never seemed to get smaller. Rent, $1,200. Electric, $93. Gas, $47. Phone, $55. Groceries, roughly $400 a month if she was very careful. Transportation, $85. For monthly bus passes for her and Sophie. She made about $2,600 a month from all three jobs combined. After rent and utilities, she had about $900 left for everything else: food, clothes, school supplies, toothpaste, laundry detergent, the occasional emergency. There was no room for error, no room for Sophie to grow out of her shoes or need new winter coats, no room for Emma to get sick and miss work, no room for anything beyond basic survival. Emma looked at Marcus Wellington's card again, still sitting in her apron pocket. $100 for an hour of consultation, he'd said when he called that morning. She'd been so surprised to hear from him that she'd nearly dropped the phone. I meant what I said. His voice had been kind but businesslike. I'd like to pay you fairly for your expertise. I don't have expertise, Emma had protested. You're raising a child alone while working 3 jobs. That's more expertise than any consultant I could hire. Emma had said she'd think about it and hung up before he could push further. But now, looking at her bills and Sophie's sad drawing and the future that felt like nothing but exhaustion stretching endlessly ahead, maybe it was worth having the conversation. Not because she trusted him, not because she believed in handouts from rich people who felt guilty about their wealth, but because $100 would buy Sophie new shoes, would pay for a winter coat that actually fit, would give Emma 1 week where she didn't have to choose between paying the electric bill on time or buying enough groceries. Emma picked up her phone and dialed the number on the card before she could second-guess herself. It went to voicemail. Professional. Polite. You've reached Marcus Wellington. Please leave a message. Mr. Wellington, this is Emma Anderson, Sophie's sister, from the toy store. She took a breath. You said you wanted to talk about what families need. I might have some thoughts about that. If the offer still stands, I'm available Thursday mornings. That's my day off from the cleaning service. She left her number and hung up before she could second-guess herself. Then she went to check on Sophie, who was sleeping peacefully, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Emma brushed a strand of hair from Sophie's forehead and whispered, I'm trying, baby. I'm trying so hard. She just hoped it would be enough. The phone rang at 6:15 the next morning, while Emma was getting ready for her cleaning shift. Miss Anderson, this is Marcus Wellington. I hope I'm not calling too early. I'm already awake, Emma said, surprised he'd called back so quickly. Surprised he'd called at all. I'd like to meet with you if you're willing, to discuss your insights about what children and families need. Would you be available for coffee this Thursday at 10? There's a cafe near the store, Sullivan's on State Street. And I meant what I said about compensation. $100 for an hour of your time. Emma's pride wanted to say no, wanted to tell him she didn't need his money, or his pity. But her empty bank account and Sophie's 2 small shoes said something different. This is professional, right? Not charity. Completely professional, Marcus assured her. I genuinely want to learn from your experience, and I believe in fair compensation for expertise. I don't have expertise in anything except surviving. That's exactly the expertise I need. His voice was earnest. How about Thursday at 10? Emma thought about the $100, about Sophie's drawing on the refrigerator, about the possibility, however slim, that this conversation might lead to something that could help other families like hers. Thursday at 10, she agreed. But Mr. Wellington, Marcus, please, Marcus, I need you to understand something. I'm not looking for handouts. If you're paying me, it's for actual work, for real insights, not because you feel sorry for us. I wouldn't have it any other way, Marcus said, and Emma could hear the smile in his voice. See you Thursday, Emma. After they hung up, Emma stood in her tiny kitchen and let herself feel something she hadn't allowed in a long time. Not hope exactly, Hope was too dangerous, but maybe, possibility. Maybe this billionaire with his fancy card and his sad story about his dead sister could actually be one of the good ones. Maybe this conversation would lead to something real. Or maybe it would be another disappointment in a long line of disappointments, and Emma would be out one Thursday morning. But at least she'd have $100 to show for it. And right now that was enough. Marcus arrived at Sullivan's Cafe 15 minutes early on Thursday morning, nervous in a way he hadn't been since his first board presentation. He'd chosen this place specifically, a neighborhood cafe 3 blocks from Emma's apartment building. Casual enough that she wouldn't feel out of place, but nice enough that the coffee was good and the tables were clean. He'd spent the past 4 days researching community programming initiatives, family support services, and what other companies were doing in the social responsibility space. Everything he found felt hollow and performative. Programs designed to look good in annual reports, not actually help people. He needed Emma's perspective, needed to understand what struggling families actually needed, not what some corporate consultant thought they needed. Marcus ordered coffee and claimed a table in the back corner, away from the morning rush. He pulled out his notebook and reviewed the questions he'd prepared, then put it away. This needed to be a conversation, not an interview. Emma arrived at exactly 10 o'clock, wearing jeans and a simple sweater that had been washed so many times the color had faded. Her natural hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she looked exhausted but carried herself with quiet dignity. Marcus stood and waved. She approached slowly, like she might bolt at any moment. "Thank you for coming," Marcus said as she sat down. "Thank you for the opportunity," Emma replied formally. "Though I still don't understand what I could possibly tell you that you don't already know. You'd be surprised." Marcus signaled the waitress. "What would you like?" "Just coffee, black." Marcus ordered 2 coffees and a basket of pastries. When the waitress left, Emma looked at him directly. "Why am I here, really?" Marcus had prepared a professional speech about market research and community engagement, but looking at Emma's tired, skeptical face, he found himself telling the truth instead. "My father died when I was 8, he said. Heart attack on a construction site. One minute I had a dad who taught me to throw a baseball and read me stories at night. The next minute, I had nothing but memories and an empty chair at dinner." Emma's expression softened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. "My mother was left alone with 2 kids, me and my little sister Sarah. She was only 4 at the time." Marcus wrapped his hands around his coffee cup. "Sarah used to ask questions like Sophie did. Why don't we have a daddy? Why did God take ours away? Can we get a new one?" "I'm sorry," Emma said quietly. "My mother struggled just like you're struggling. 3 jobs, constant exhaustion, trying to be everything to both of us." I watched her slowly break under the weight of it. Marcus's voice grew quieter, and I watched Sarah grow up asking questions that had no good answers. Marcus paused, gathering the courage to share the part that still hurt most. "Sarah died in a car accident when she was 23, fell asleep at the wheel driving home from her second job. She was working 2 jobs to pay off student loans our mother had co-signed, saving money for grad school. She wanted to be a social worker, to help families like ours." His voice cracked slightly. "She never got the chance." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. I can't imagine. When Sophie asked to buy a daddy, I saw Sarah in her. That same desperate hope, that same belief that there must be some way to fix what's broken." Marcus looked at Emma directly. "And when I saw you, exhausted, proud, carrying everything alone, I saw my mother. And I thought, what if someone had helped us back then? What if someone had created programs that supported families instead of judging them? What if Sarah hadn't felt like she had to work herself to death to prove she didn't need help?" Emma studied him carefully, searching for the lie or the angle. "So this is about guilt." "Partly," Marcus admitted. "But it's also about purpose. I've spent the past 10 years building a business empire, making money, expanding stores, creating shareholder value, and none of it means anything. But this, creating programs that might help families like yours, like mine was, this could actually matter." The waitress brought their coffee and pastries. Emma wrapped her hands around her mug but didn't drink. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked. "I want to create family support programs at my stores, not just selling toys but providing actual community resources, story times, homework help, safe spaces for kids while parents work or run errands, birthday celebrations for families who can't afford them, programs that serve real people with real needs, not just look good in press releases. Marcus pulled out a folder. But I don't know how to do it right. I need someone who understands what struggling families actually need. Someone who won't let me design programs that sound good on paper but don't actually help anyone. And you think that's me? I think you're exactly who I need. Marcus slid the folder across to her. I'd like to hire you as a consultant. A few hours a week to start. Help me develop programs that genuinely serve families. Fair compensation for fair work. $100 per hour for our weekly meetings, plus a stipend if you help with additional planning or research. Emma opened the folder with hesitant hands, flipping through articles about community programs, sketches of store layouts, preliminary budget proposals. The research was extensive. He'd clearly spent significant time on this. This is a lot of work, she said finally. It is, which is why I'm proposing to pay you fairly for helping me get it right. Marcus leaned back. Emma, I'm not offering you charity. I'm offering you a consulting position. Your lived experience has value, real, measurable value. Let me compensate you fairly for sharing it. Emma was quiet for a long moment, reading through the documents. Marcus could see her mind working, assessing, looking for the catch. $100 an hour, she said finally. That's my starting offer for the weekly consultations. If the scope of work expands, we can renegotiate. That's more than I make in a full day at the diner. Then you're being severely underpaid for your expertise in survival, resilience and understanding what children actually need. Emma looked at him, really looked at him, searching his face for hidden motives. Why do I get the feeling there's more to this than just community programming? Marcus smiled slightly. Because you're perceptive. You're right, there is more. I've watched my company grow into this massive operation that serves wealthy families who don't need our help. We sell $300 dollhouses to kids who have playrooms bigger than most apartments. We market premium toys to parents who buy whatever we tell them to buy. And every quarter our profits go up, and I feel more and more disconnected from why I started this business in the first place. Which was to bring joy to children, to create moments of happiness, to be part of families' good memories. Marcus's voice was earnest. But I've lost sight of that. I've built an empire that serves the wealthy and ignores everyone else. Sophie reminded me of what actually matters. Emma took a sip of her coffee, thinking, if I do this, and I'm not saying I will, I have conditions. Name them. First, this has to be real, not performative charity that makes you feel better about your sister. If I'm going to spend my time on this, it has to genuinely help families who need it. Agreed. Second, you have to actually listen when I tell you something won't work. Even if it's not what you want to hear. Even if it contradicts what your marketing people or your board thinks. I promise to listen. That's exactly why I need you to tell me the truth. Third, I need autonomy. If I'm consulting, I'm consulting. I'm not just nodding along with ideas you've already decided on. My insights have to actually matter. Marcus smiled. I wouldn't want it any other way. Emma pulled out a worn notebook from her bag, the kind you could buy at the dollar store, already half filled with what looked like shopping lists and budget calculations. Okay then, she said, opening to a fresh page. Let's start with what doesn't work. Free programs sound great in theory, but if they're only offered during work hours, working parents can't use them. You're just serving wealthy stay-at-home parents who don't actually need the help. Marcus pulled out his own notebook and started taking notes. They talked for 3 hours. Emma described the impossible logistics of her life, how even free programs were useless if they didn't accommodate her schedule, how Sophie needed consistency more than expensive toys, how birthday parties mattered because they were about belonging and celebration, not presents. She talked about the shame of poverty, how well-meaning charity often felt like judgment, how the hardest part of struggling wasn't the lack of money, but the constant invisible feeling of being overlooked and undervalued. Marcus listened and took notes, asking thoughtful questions, absorbing everything she said. He asked about timing. When could families actually attend programs? He asked about logistics. What kept her from accessing services that technically existed? He asked about dignity. What made the difference between charity that felt demeaning and support that felt respectful? Most rich people don't actually want to hear this stuff, Emma said at one point. They want to be told that their programs are wonderful and they're helping so much. I'm not most rich people, Marcus replied. I actually want to get this right, even if that means hearing that I've been getting it wrong. As they talked, Emma found herself relaxing slightly. Marcus didn't have the patronizing tone she'd expected. He didn't act like he already knew what poor people needed, and was just checking boxes. He asked genuine questions, and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. Can I ask you something? Emma said as they approached the 3-hour mark. Of course. Why do you really care about this? I get that you feel guilty about your sister, but lots of rich people feel guilty, and don't actually do anything about it. What makes you different? Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking. Honestly, I'm not sure I am different. I've spent 10 years feeling guilty and not doing anything meaningful about it. But when Sophie walked into my store and asked that question, something broke open inside me. I realized I'd been hiding behind work and wealth, pretending that success meant I'd move past my grief. But I haven't. I've just been avoiding it. And you think helping struggling families will fix that? No. I think it might honor Sarah's memory in a way that matters. She wanted to spend her life helping people. I've spent mine making money. Maybe if I can build something she would have been proud of, something that helps kids like her and Sophie, maybe that's a kind of healing. Emma understood that. She thought about her mother, about the values Catherine Anderson had tried to instill despite their circumstances, about how Emma wanted to honor her memory by giving Sophie a better life. Okay, Emma said, I'll do it. Weekly consultations $100 per hour. But Marcus, if this becomes about making you feel better instead of actually helping families, I'm out. Deal, deal. Marcus smiled, relief evident on his face. Same time next week. Same time next week. As Emma left the cafe with a $100 bill in her pocket, the first money she'd earned in months that didn't come from serving food or cleaning offices or stocking shelves, she felt something unfamiliar. Not quite hope, but maybe, possibility. Maybe this billionaire with his dead sister and his genuine questions could actually be one of the good ones. Or maybe he'd disappoint her like everyone else eventually did. But for now, she had $100. And next week, she'd have another $100. And maybe, just maybe, that would be the beginning of something that could actually help families like hers. Over the next 8 weeks, Emma and Marcus met every Thursday morning at Sullivan's Cafe. What started as professional consulting sessions gradually evolved into something deeper, not romance but genuine collaboration, built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Emma brought real-world insights that no business school could teach. She explained why programs needed to include snacks because some kids came hungry. Why multiple time slots mattered because single parents worked odd shifts. Why birthday celebrations should focus on making children feel special rather than providing expensive entertainment. During their 4th meeting, Emma brought a list she'd been working on all week. If you really want these programs to work, here's what you need to understand, she said, sliding the paper across to Marcus. Poor families don't just need charity, they need respect. They need programs that treat them like valued community members, not problems to be solved. Marcus read through her list. Programs must accommodate working hours, not assume stay-at-home parents. Food provided should be nutritious but not condescending. Staff should be trained to interact with dignity, not pity. Activities should celebrate what children can do, not highlight what they lack. Parents should be partners in programming, not passive recipients. Follow-up should feel like community building, not surveillance. This is brilliant, Marcus said. Can I keep this? It's yours. But Marcus, I need you to really hear this. The difference between good programs and harmful ones isn't money, it's attitude. I've been to free meal programs where volunteers acted like we should be grateful for their scraps. I've been to community centers where staff treated poor families like we were there to steal things. The best help I ever received was from Miss Patricia, my neighbor, because she treated Sophie and me like equals who were temporarily struggling, not charity cases to be pitied. Marcus took notes, nodding. Tell me more about Miss Patricia. Emma smiled, thinking of the elderly woman who'd become their lifeline. She's in her 70s, lives next door to us. Started watching Sophie after school when I went back to work after Mom died. She refuses to take money, says Sophie's company is payment enough. But it's the way she treats us that matters. She doesn't act like she's doing us a favor. She shares meals like we're family. She helps Sophie with homework like she's an invested grandparent. She never makes us feel less than. That's what these programs should feel like, Marcus said, writing rapidly. Like family, like community, not like charity. By their 6th meeting, Marcus had begun implementing changes at the store. He'd hired 2 storytellers for Saturday morning sessions, creating a cozy reading corner with comfortable chairs and good lighting. He'd partnered with a local university to provide volunteer tutors for after-school homework help. I need to introduce you to someone, Marcus said during their 7th meeting. My community outreach coordinator, Daniel Jones. He grew up in this neighborhood, knows the community inside and out. I think you two should collaborate on the programming details. Another consultant, Emma asked, slightly defensive. An employee, but someone who actually understands community work. His parents owned a restaurant 3 blocks from here, Jones's Garden. Daniel worked there all through school while getting his degree in non-profit management. He's genuine, Emma. Someone who gets it. The following Thursday, Marcus brought Daniel to their meeting. Daniel Jones was about Emma's age, maybe a year or 2 older, with an easy smile and warm demeanor. He wore khakis and a Wellington Toys polo shirt, but seemed comfortable and unpretentious. Emma, hi, I've heard so much about you, Daniel said, offering his hand. Marcus has been talking about your insights for weeks. The programming ideas you've developed are really impressive. Emma shook his hand cautiously. Thank you. Marcus mentioned you grew up in the neighborhood. 3 blocks from here, actually. My parents immigrated from Taiwan and opened a restaurant on Clark Street. I grew up bussing tables and doing homework in the back office. Daniel's smile was self-deprecating. So I know what it's like to be the kid whose family is always working, who doesn't quite fit in with the wealthy kids at school. Something in Emma relaxed. Your parents still have the restaurant. Daniel's expression dimmed. My mom does. My dad passed away 3 years ago, heart attack. Mom kept the restaurant going, and I help when I can, but it's been hard on her. I'm sorry, Emma said, and meant it. My mom died 14 months ago, cancer. That's incredibly hard. I'm sorry. Daniel's empathy seemed genuine, not performative. Are you raising Sophie on your own? Yeah, she's 6, 1st grade. She's amazing, but it's... Emma trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. Overwhelming, Daniel offered. Exhausting, terrifying, all of that. I get it. After my dad died, I watched my mom try to keep everything together while grieving. It nearly destroyed her. Daniel pulled out a folder, which is part of why I'm so excited about what you and Marcus are building. Programs like this could have really helped my family, could have given my mom support instead of just survival. They spent the next 2 hours going through programming details. Daniel had compiled data on neighborhood demographics, school schedules, existing community resources. He knew which schools had the highest free lunch participation, which neighborhoods had the least access to childcare, which families were most isolated. You've really done your homework, Emma observed. This is my community, Daniel said simply. I want to give back to the place that raised me. As the meeting wound down, Daniel asked, would you be willing to visit some of the local schools with me? Talk to principals and counselors about what families need. Your perspective as a parent would be invaluable. Emma hesitated. I'm not a parent, I'm Sophie's sister. You're raising her right, making all the decisions about her care and education. Yes, but then you're a parent in every way that matters. Daniel said firmly. Legal terminology doesn't change the reality of what you're doing. Emma felt something loosen in her chest. Most people treated her raising Sophie as temporary or somehow less legitimate than real parenting. But Daniel just stated it as fact. Okay, she said, I can do school visits. When, over the next 3 weeks, Emma and Daniel visited 6 schools, 3 community centers, and 2 churches with family programs. Everywhere they went, Daniel introduced Emma as his colleague, treating her insights with respect and incorporating her feedback into plans. Emma found herself looking forward to these outings. Daniel was easy to talk to, never condescending, genuinely interested in understanding family needs. He shared stories about his own family's struggles, making Emma feel less alone in her experiences. During a visit to Sophie's school, they met with the principal, Mrs. Rodriguez. Sophie Anderson. "Oh yes, I know Sophie," Mrs. Rodriguez said warmly. "Bright child, very creative, how can I help you?" Daniel explained the programming initiative while Emma listened. She was struck by how he positioned everything, not as charity for poor families, but as community resources that would strengthen all families. "We'd love your input on timing and structure," Daniel said. "What do families at this school actually need?" Mrs. Rodriguez pulled out attendance data and free lunch statistics. 63% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunch. Most have parents working multiple jobs. We see kids coming to school hungry, without winter coats, struggling with homework because no one at home has time to help them. Emma felt her chest tighten. Sophie was one of those statistics. "What if we offered homework help here at the school?" Daniel suggested. "After-school program, 3 days a week, with snacks provided. Transportation home at 6 o'clock for families who need it. That would be life-changing for our families," Mrs. Rodriguez said. Walking back to the bus stop after the meeting, Daniel turned to Emma. "You okay? You got quiet in there." "Just thinking about how Sophie's one of those statistics. 63%, a number on a spreadsheet. She's not a statistic to you, and she's not a statistic to Mrs. Rodriguez, either. She's Sophie, a real kid with real needs." Daniel's voice was gentle. "That's why this work matters. Because behind every statistic is a child who deserves better." Emma blinked back unexpected tears. "Thank you for seeing that. Thank you for helping us build something that actually serves kids like Sophie." During their 10th Thursday meeting, Marcus made an unexpected proposal. "Emma, I've been thinking. These consulting sessions have been invaluable, but they're limited to a few hours a week. What if we expanded this?" Emma's heart sank. Here it came. The moment he'd decide to hire someone with actual credentials. "I want to create a full-time position," Marcus continued. "Program coordinator for family services. Someone to develop and implement these initiatives. Someone who understands the community." "That sounds like a good idea," Emma said carefully. "Do you want me to help interview candidates?" Marcus looked confused. "Emma, I'm talking about you." "What? I want to hire you, full-time, to coordinate these programs." Emma stared at him. "Marcus, I don't have any qualifications for that kind of job. I never finished college. I have no experience in program coordination or, you have lived experience and genuine compassion. You've been essentially designing these programs for 2 months. Marcus pulled out a folder. "I've drawn up a job description and salary proposal. Take a look." Emma opened it with shaking hands. The job description was detailed and professional. The salary made her gasp. This is $45,000 a year. It's competitive for the position in the nonprofit sector. Plus full health benefits, paid time off, and flexible hours so you can be there for Sophie after school. $45,000. That was $13,000 more than she currently made working 3 jobs. With health insurance. With time to actually be present in Sophie's life. "Why me?" Emma whispered. "You could hire someone with a degree in social work or nonprofit management. Those people design programs they think should work." Marcus interrupted gently. "You design programs you know will work because you've lived them. That's more valuable than any degree. People will say you're just helping me, because you feel sorry for us. Let them say it. I know the truth. Daniel knows the truth. You know the truth." Marcus leaned forward. "Emma, this isn't charity. This is recognizing talent and expertise where it exists. You're qualified for this job. More qualified than anyone else I could find. The question is whether you're willing to take the risk." Emma looked down at the job description. Program coordinator for family services. Her name on the door, real work that mattered. "Can I think about it?" she asked, though her heart was already screaming yes. "Take all the time you need." That night, Emma came home to find Sophie working on homework at their small kitchen table while Miss Patricia prepared dinner. "How was school?" Emma asked, kissing the top of Sophie's head. "Good. We learned about community helpers. I said you help families and Miss Patricia helps us and Mr. Marcus helps by making programs. Is that right?" Emma smiled. "That's exactly right." After Miss Patricia left and Sophie was in bed, Emma sat alone with the job description and salary proposal. She thought about what accepting would mean: quitting the diner, the grocery store, the cleaning service, putting all her eggs in one basket, trusting that this opportunity was real and wouldn't disappear. It was terrifying. It was also everything she'd been working toward. Emma picked up her phone and called Marcus. "I accept," she said when he answered. "When do I start?" She could hear the smile in his voice. "How about Monday?" "Monday it is." After they hung up, Emma sat in her quiet apartment and let herself feel something she hadn't experienced in 14 months. Hope, real genuine hope that maybe, just maybe, life was about to get better. Emma's first official day as program coordinator began with Marcus giving her a tour of the space he'd allocated for the Family Services Initiative. It was far larger than she'd expected, an entire section of the store's second floor currently used for storage but filled with possibility. "I was thinking we could divide it into zones," Marcus said, gesturing as they walked. "A reading corner where it's quiet, a craft area near the windows, a homework help station with proper desks, maybe even a small kitchen space for cooking classes." Emma moved through the room slowly, already rearranging it in her mind. She pulled out the notebook she'd been carrying everywhere, its pages crowded with ideas. "We'll need good lighting in the homework area," she said, "and the craft space should be near a sink. The reading corner needs soft seating but also floor space. Some kids like to sprawl with books." Marcus smiled. "I'll have the architect's draft plans based on your notes. What else?" "A detailed budget, a hiring timeline and outreach materials so families actually know these programs exist." Emma replied, flipping pages. "I've been making lists." "I can tell," Marcus laughed. "Want to grab coffee and go through them?" They spent the morning in Marcus's office, a space that still made Emma uneasy with its sweeping city views and expensive furniture. But Marcus had a way of listening that made it feel less like a boss's office and more like a shared workspace. "What about long-term funding?" Emma asked as they reviewed numbers. "These programs don't generate profit. How do we keep them going?" "I set up a dedicated fund," Marcus said, $3 million, fully endowed. The interest will cover operating costs and I'm pursuing foundation partnerships for expansion." Emma stared at him. $3 million, I don't want you worrying about budgets instead of families, he said simply. "This work matters." "Thank you," Emma said quietly, "for trusting me. Thank you for showing me what's worth trusting." By early afternoon Marcus had to leave for a board meeting. "Explore the building," he told her. "Get a feel for how everything flows. Daniel's around if you have questions. His office is upstairs." Emma took him up on that. She wanted to understand how the family programs would fit into the larger rhythm of the store. She was studying foot traffic on the second floor when she rounded a corner and nearly collided with someone. "Whoa, are you okay?" Strong hands steadied her. Emma looked up into warm brown eyes and an easy smile. "I'm fine, sorry," she said. "I was distracted thinking about furniture placement." Daniel Jones laughed softly. "That's how I know you're serious about this." "First day going okay." "It's overwhelming," Emma admitted. "In a good way, but still overwhelming." "Coffee," Daniel offered. "I can give you a quick crash course on how things run around here." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." 15 minutes, they rode down to the cafe on the first floor. As they waited in line, Daniel asked about her morning. "The space is incredible," Emma said. "I keep imagining what it could become and getting excited and terrified." "That feeling doesn't go away," Daniel said. "Marcus gives people big responsibilities and then actually trusts them. It's rare." "How long have you worked here?" 2 years. "I came from a community center on the south side." Marcus visited, asked a million questions and offered me a job because he wanted someone who understood real community work. "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes, but here I can help more families. Bigger reach, better resources." He glanced at her. "What about you? What do you miss from your old jobs?" Emma thought for a moment. "The diner, the regulars, people knowing my name, but I don't miss the exhaustion. or barely seeing Sophie. "Sophie's your sister, right?" Emma felt herself tense, then relax when she heard his tone, curious, not judgmental. "Yeah, she's 6. I've been raising her since our mom died." "That's a lot to carry," Daniel said gently. "Grief and parenting at the same time. Most people don't really understand that," Emma said. "They either treat me like a hero or like I'm not a real parent." "You are," Daniel said simply, "and from what Marcus has told me, you understand kids better than most professionals." They found a small table near the window. The conversation flowed easily about families, neighborhoods, the kinds of programs they wanted to build. Daniel told stories about growing up in his parents' restaurant, about helping after school and learning to talk to strangers before he was tall enough to reach the counter. Emma laughed more than she had in weeks. "I should get back," she said, eventually checking her watch. "I want to start drafting job descriptions." "I can help with that," Daniel offered. "I've hired program staff before." "That would be great," Emma said, surprised by how comfortable she felt. They rode the elevator back up together. As they stepped out onto her floor, Daniel hesitated. "Once you're settled," he said, "maybe we could grab lunch sometime, talk more about partnerships. I know a few organizations we should connect with." "I'd like that," Emma replied, and realized she truly meant it. As Daniel walked away, Emma stood for a moment in the quiet hallway, her notebook pressed to her chest. For the first time since her mother died, she didn't feel like she was just surviving. She was building something. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma threw herself fully into building the programs. She hired Margaret, a retired elementary school teacher, to lead story times. She brought on Alex, a college student studying education, to run homework help. And she recruited Beatrice, a warm grandmotherly presence, to guide the craft workshops. Each hire felt right, not just qualified but genuinely caring. And through it all, Daniel was there. He helped draft interview questions, shared insight about the neighborhood, and offered advice without ever taking control. Slowly, naturally, they fell into an easy rhythm. Coffee breaks spent talking through challenges, quick lunches to review progress, short text exchanges about funny moments or unexpected setbacks. "You're smiling at your phone a lot lately," Marcus remarked one afternoon as Emma checked a message. Emma flushed. "Daniel sent me a video of a kid explaining quantum physics with action figures. It's actually hilarious." Marcus smiled but didn't tease. "How's staff training going?" "Great. Everyone's excited about the launch next week." Emma hesitated. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you hire Daniel?" Marcus leaned back thoughtfully. His credentials were solid, but more than that, he grew up here. He understands this community from the inside. He's lived through loss, watched his family struggle to survive. He doesn't see this as charity, he sees it as community. Emma nodded slowly. "That makes sense. He treats families like equals." "That's why I hired him," Marcus said gently. "And why I hired you." Emma felt warmth rise to her cheeks. "We're just colleagues." "I didn't say otherwise," Marcus replied, smiling faintly. That evening, Emma picked Sophie up from the after-school program at the store, one of the quiet blessings of her new job. As they walked home, her phone buzzed. "Found a great community garden we could partner with. Want to check it out Saturday morning? I'll bring coffee." Daniel. Emma paused. Saturdays were usually just for Sophie, but the partnership mattered, and Daniel's message felt considerate, not demanding. "Sophia and I would love to," she typed back. "What time?" When Sophie glanced up from her coloring book, Emma explained. "Daniel wants to show us a community garden." Sophie's face brightened. "Mr. Daniel, I like him. He helped me with math and didn't make me feel dumb." "That's important," Emma said softly. "He's your friend, right?" "Yes." Emma smiled. "He is." "Good," Sophie said matter-of-factly. "You should have friends. You're always working or taking care of me. You should have fun too." The quiet wisdom in her sister's words made Emma's chest ache. That night, after Sophie was asleep, Emma lay awake thinking about how much her life had changed. New work, new purpose, and an unexpected friendship that felt steady and safe. She wasn't looking for romance. She didn't know if she was ready for that. But friendship, real friendship, built on shared values and mutual respect, felt possible. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what she needed. Saturday morning arrived bright and cold. Emma bundled Sophie into her too small winter coat, another item on the list of things to replace now that money wasn't quite so desperately tight, and they took the bus to the address Daniel had provided. The community garden was a revelation. 3 city lots transformed into growing spaces, with raised beds for vegetables, a small greenhouse, and a children's area with painted rocks and garden gnomes. Daniel was waiting by the entrance, holding a carrier with 3 coffee cups and a bag from the bakery. "Good morning," he called out. "I brought coffee for you, Emma, and hot chocolate for Sophie, plus muffins." Sophie's face lit up. "Chocolate chip, is there any other kind?" Daniel handed her the bag. "Why don't you pick one while your sister and I talk to the garden coordinator?" They spent an hour touring the facility, meeting with the director, discussing partnership possibilities. The garden offered educational programs, volunteer opportunities, fresh produce for families in need, all run with dignity and respect for the community. "This is exactly the kind of partnership we should build," Emma said as they walked back toward the entrance. "They're serving real needs without making people feel like charity cases." "I thought you'd appreciate that," Daniel said. Then to Sophie, "Want to see the kids' garden before we go?" Sophie nodded enthusiastically. As they walked toward the children's area, she slipped her hand into Daniel's like it was the most natural thing in the world. Emma felt something catch in her chest. Sophie had been so starved for male attention, for father figures, that she attached quickly to any kind man who paid attention to her. It was sweet and heartbreaking at the same time. Daniel didn't seem bothered. He walked at Sophie's pace, answering her questions about the plants, pointing out interesting insects. "Mr. Daniel," Sophie asked as they examined a tomato plant, "do you have kids?" "Nope, just me." "Do you want kids someday?" "Sophie," Emma started, embarrassed. "It's okay," Daniel said easily. "Yeah, Sophie, I do want kids someday. When I find the right person to have them with." "You should marry Emma," Sophie announced with the blunt honesty of 6-year-olds. "Then you could be my daddy, and we could all live together, and Emma wouldn't cry at night anymore." Emma felt her face burn. "Sophie, that's not, we don't just," but Daniel knelt down to Sophie's level, his expression gentle. "Sophie, your sister is wonderful, but being a family isn't that simple. And Emma isn't looking for someone to rescue her. She's doing an amazing job taking care of you all by herself, but she's tired all the time, and sad sometimes. Don't you think she needs help?" "Everyone needs help sometimes," Daniel said carefully. "But there's a difference between helping someone and trying to fix their whole life. Emma's not broken, she's just working really hard. The best way to help is to be a good friend and colleague, not to try to take over." Emma felt tears prick her eyes at how perfectly Daniel understood, how he saw her as capable rather than needy, as strong rather than weak. "Oh," Sophie said, processing this, "so you're going to be Emma's friend, not her husband." "Right now I'm happy being her friend. That's a pretty important job too." Sophie seemed to accept this. She went back to examining plants while Emma and Daniel stood a few feet away. "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "She's been fixated on the idea of getting a daddy ever since. Well, ever since she tried to buy one at the store." "Don't apologize. It's natural for her to want a complete family." Daniel's voice was warm. "And for what it's worth, you're doing an incredible job with her. She's smart, kind, well-adjusted. That doesn't happen by accident." "Thank you," Emma managed. They walked back to the bus stop together, Sophie skipping ahead. As they waited for Emma's bus, Daniel said, "Hey, I meant what I said to Sophie. I like being your friend, and I don't want you to feel weird about it, or worry that I have ulterior motives. I enjoy spending time with you, both of you. That's all." "I enjoy it too," Emma admitted. "It's been a long time since I had adult friendships that weren't about work or obligation." "Then let's keep doing this. Garden visits, coffee breaks, whatever, as friends." "As friends," Emma agreed, and felt something in her chest loosen. She wasn't looking for romance, but friendship with someone who respected her, who understood struggle, who treated Sophie with genuine kindness. That felt safe, that felt good, that felt like something worth nurturing. 3 months into Emma's new job, everything seemed to be going well. The programs were thriving, serving more families every week. Sophie was flourishing with Emma home more, and Emma's friendship with Daniel had grown into something comfortable and easy. Lunch dates that sometimes stretched into long conversations, weekend outings where he'd join Emma and Sophie at museums or parks, text conversations that made Emma smile. Marcus watched it all with quiet satisfaction. He'd become like an older brother to Emma, checking in regularly, offering advice when asked, celebrating her victories, someone she could turn to without feeling judged. Then on a Tuesday afternoon in late November, Sophie's appendicitis struck without warning. Emma was at the store, training new volunteers for the holiday programming, when her phone rang. Sophie's school. The nurse's voice was calm but urgent. "Miss Anderson, Sophie's been complaining of severe stomach pain. It came on suddenly during recess. We've called an ambulance. They're taking her to Children's Memorial Hospital." The world tilted. Emma's hands went numb. "I'm coming, tell her I'm coming." Emma grabbed her purse and ran for the elevator, her heart pounding so hard she thought she might be sick. The elevator seemed to take forever. She jabbed the button repeatedly, uselessly. When the doors finally opened on the first floor, she nearly collided with Daniel in the lobby. "Emma, what's wrong?" "Sophie, hospital, ambulance, I have to." She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't breathe. "I'll drive you," Daniel said immediately, his hand steadying her elbow. "Come on." Marcus appeared from the direction of his office. "What happened?" "Sophie's being taken to Children's Memorial," Daniel explained. "I'm driving Emma." "Go," Marcus said. "Both of you, I'll meet you there." The drive to the hospital was a blur. Daniel navigated traffic with swift efficiency while Emma tried to remember how to breathe. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't dial Miss Patricia's number to let her know what was happening. "Here," Daniel said gently, taking her phone. "Who do you need to call?" "Miss Patricia. She needs to know Sophie won't be coming home after school." Daniel made the call while keeping one hand on the wheel, explaining the situation calmly to the elderly neighbor. At the hospital, they were directed to the emergency department. Emma ran through the corridors, following signs, until she found the pediatric ER. A nurse led her to a curtained bay where Sophie lay on a gurney, small and scared and in pain. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here," Emma said, rushing to Sophie's side. "It hurts," Sophie whimpered, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, it really hurts." "I know, sweetheart. The doctors are going to help you." A doctor appeared, young female, competent looking. "Miss Anderson, I'm Dr. Patel. We've examined Sophie and run some preliminary tests. We believe she has acute appendicitis. We're waiting on blood work to confirm, but she'll likely need emergency surgery." Surgery. The word hit Emma like a physical blow. Is it dangerous?" "Appendectomies are very routine, especially in children, but we need to move quickly to prevent rupture." Dr. Patel's voice was kind but professional. "I'll need you to sign consent forms and we'll need your insurance information." The next hours were a nightmare of medical jargon, consent forms, and Sophie being wheeled away for tests. Daniel stayed beside Emma, steady and quiet. Marcus arrived within 30 minutes, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "How is she?" Marcus asked, slightly out of breath. "They think it's appendicitis. She's getting more tests." Emma felt tears starting. "They said she needs surgery." "Kids have appendectomies all the time," Marcus said, his voice gentle. "It's routine surgery, Emma. Sophie's going to be fine." But Emma had learned the hard way that routine didn't mean safe. Her mother's cancer had started as routine checkups, routine scans, routine treatments, until suddenly nothing was routine anymore, and her mother was dying. "I can't lose her," Emma whispered. "She's all I have left." Daniel took her hand and squeezed gently. "You're not going to lose her. Sophie's tough, just like her sister." Dr. Patel returned with test results. "The blood work confirms appendicitis. We need to take her to surgery within the next hour. The appendix hasn't ruptured yet, which is good. This should be straightforward." Emma signed more forms, her hands shaking. She was allowed 5 minutes with Sophie before surgery. "Emma, I'm scared," Sophie said, her voice small. "I know, baby, but the doctors are really good, and this surgery will make the pain go away." Emma smoothed Sophie's hair back from her forehead. "I'll be right here waiting for you. The second you wake up I'll be here. Promise?" I promise." They wheeled Sophie away. Emma watched her disappear through double doors and felt like her heart was being ripped from her chest. Marcus guided Emma to the surgical waiting room. Daniel went to find coffee and food. Emma sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair and tried not to fall apart. "Talk to me," Marcus said quietly. "Tell me what you're thinking." "I'm thinking about how my mom promised she'd beat cancer. Promised she'd be there for Sophie's first day of school, for her graduation, for her wedding. And then she died anyway. Promises don't mean anything when life decides to take people away. Emma, Sophie is 6 years old. She's already lost her mother. She can't lose. I can't." Emma's voice broke. Marcus put his arm around her shoulders, brotherly and comforting. "Sophie is not your mother. This is appendicitis, not cancer. The doctor said it's routine. Routine doesn't mean safe." "No," Marcus agreed. "It doesn't, but catastrophizing doesn't keep her safe either. Right now Sophie needs you to trust that the doctors know what they're doing. And when she wakes up scared and in pain, she needs you to be strong." Emma leaned against Marcus's shoulder. This man who'd become like family in just a few months. "I don't know if I can be strong right now." "Then borrow mine. That's what family does." Daniel returned with coffee and sandwiches. He sat on Emma's other side, quiet and supportive. The three of them waited together. 2 hours passed like centuries. Emma couldn't eat, could barely drink the coffee. She watched the clock, watched other families come and go, watched the surgical board update with patients moving from surgery to recovery. Finally Dr. Patel appeared. "Sophie did beautifully," she said with a warm smile. "The appendectomy was successful, no complications. She's in recovery now. She'll be groggy from anesthesia, but you can see her in about 20 minutes. Emma burst into tears, relief so intense it felt like physical pain. Daniel wrapped his arms around her while Marcus spoke to the doctor about recovery expectations. When Emma was finally allowed to see Sophie, she found her little sister awake but drowsy, hooked up to an IV, with a small bandage on her abdomen. "Hi," Sophie mumbled, her words slightly slurred. "Did they take out the bad part?" "They did, baby. You're all better now." "Good. It really hurt." Sophie's eyes drifted closed, then opened again. "Is Mr. Daniel here?" "He's in the waiting room with Uncle Marcus." "Uncle Marcus." Sophie smiled loopily. "That's nice. He's nice. Mr. Daniel is nice too. You should keep them both." Emma laughed through her tears. "I planned to, sweetheart. Now rest. You need to sleep." As Sophie drifted off, Emma sat beside the bed holding her hand. Marcus and Daniel appeared in the doorway. "She okay?" Marcus asked softly. "She's perfect," Emma whispered. They stayed through the evening, taking turns sitting with Sophie while she slept off the anesthesia. Marcus left around 8, to handle some urgent business calls, promising to return in the morning. Daniel stayed until visiting hours ended at 9. "You should go home," Emma told him. "Get some rest." "Are you staying?" "I can't leave her." "Then I'm staying too." Daniel settled into the second chair in the room. "Hospital chairs aren't comfortable, but I've slept in worse places." "Daniel, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." His voice was firm but gentle. "Emma, you've been doing everything alone for so long. Let someone help. Let me help." Emma looked at this man who'd become so important to her in just a few months. This friend who treated her like an equal, who respected her strength while offering support, who cared about Sophie like she mattered. "Okay," Emma said quietly. "Thank you." They sat together through the night, taking turns dozing while Sophie slept peacefully, her appendix gone, and her body healing. And Emma let herself lean on someone for the first time in 14 months. Let herself accept help without feeling weak. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to carry every burden alone. Sophie recovered quickly from surgery, bouncing back with the resilient optimism only children seem to possess. Within a week she was back at school, proudly showing off her small scar and telling wildly exaggerated stories about her operation. Emma returned to work soon after, deeply grateful for the flexible schedule Marcus insisted on giving her. He'd called it family medical leave, even though Emma protested that she'd only been gone a week. "Your family," Marcus had said simply. "This is what family does." The words stayed with her long after she returned to her desk.
Daniel had been just as steady, covering meetings, sending check-in texts, making sure she ate lunch. Their friendship, tested by the hospital crisis, had deepened into something solid and quietly reassuring. For the first time in over a year, Emma allowed herself to believe life might finally be leveling out. Then the hospital bill arrived. It came on a Thursday morning in late December, sealed inside a thick envelope. Emma opened it at the kitchen table, while Sophie ate cereal, expecting something manageable, maybe a few $1,000s. She stared at the number, reading it again and again. $28,417. Insurance had covered most of it, but her share, the deductible, co-pays, ambulance, and an out-of-network anesthesiologist, came to $12,812. $12,000. Emma sat frozen, the paper trembling in her hands. She had just over $3,000 in savings, 3 months of careful progress, that vanished instantly in her mind. Nearly $10,000 remained, money she simply didn't have. She could set up a payment plan, stretch it over years, but even the minimum payments would erase the fragile financial stability she'd worked so hard to build. "Emma, what's wrong?" Sophie asked. "Nothing, baby," Emma said quickly, forcing a smile. "Just mail." After dropping Sophie at school, Emma went to work and tried to drown herself in tasks, holiday planning, schedules, emails, anything to keep her from thinking about the number burning a hole in her pocket. Daniel found her at lunch, staring at her screen. "You okay?" he asked. Emma hesitated, then exhaled. Sophie's hospital bill came. "After insurance, I owe almost $13,000. Daniel's face fell. "That's a lot." "It's impossible," Emma said quietly. "I finally thought we were getting ahead. Could you set up a payment plan?" "Yes, but it means starting over, every dollar spoken for before I even earn it." Daniel paused. "Have you thought about asking Marcus for help, even in advance?" Something hardened inside Emma. "No." "Emma, he'd want to help. That's exactly why I can't ask." Her voice sharpened. "The moment I do, I stop being a respected colleague and become a charity case. The poor single mother he rescued. I don't think he sees you that way." "Everyone does eventually," Emma said. "I work too hard to prove I belong here. One request for money undoes that." Daniel didn't argue further. He simply nodded. That afternoon, Emma called the hospital and arranged a payment plan. $500 a month for 26 months. Tight but survivable. She told no one except Daniel, and she pretended the stress wasn't slowly crushing her. Weeks passed. January turned to February. Sophie thrived. The programs expanded. Emma and Daniel's connection edged closer to something more, though neither named it. Marcus noticed the change. Emma was quieter, more guarded. When he asked if everything was okay, she smiled and said yes. He didn't believe her. One afternoon, while reviewing reports, Marcus noticed something odd. The employee assistance fund he'd quietly established, meant for emergencies, had never been used. Emma should have qualified. He called HR. "Has Emma Anderson applied for assistance?" "No," the director said. "Should she?" Marcus frowned. "Her sister had emergency surgery. I'll resend the information." But Marcus already knew. Emma hadn't missed the email. That afternoon, he tried talking to her. "How are Sophie's medical bills being handled?" he asked gently. "They're handled," Emma replied quickly. "You know we have a fund for situations like this." "I appreciate that, Marcus, but I'm managing." "You don't have to manage alone." "I am," she said softly, but firmly. Marcus let it drop, though unease settled deep in his chest. After she left, he sat alone, thinking about his mother refusing help after his father died, about Sarah working herself into exhaustion rather than accept support, about how pride, so often mistaken for strength, had nearly destroyed the people he loved, and he wondered how much Emma was carrying alone, and how long she could keep standing before it broke her too. Marcus made a decision he knew Emma might hate him for. He called the hospital billing department. "This is Marcus Wellington. I'm calling about an account for Sophie Anderson, date of birth June 14, 2017. I'd like to inquire about the outstanding balance." "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't provide account information unless you're listed on the account." "I'm not listed, but I'd like to make a payment on the account if there's an outstanding balance." "Is that possible?"
Let me check. Yes, sir. Anyone can make a payment on any account as long as they have the account number or patient information. The current balance is $12,812. Marcus felt his stomach clench. $13,000 that Emma was trying to pay off alone. I'd like to pay that in full, please. The entire balance, yes. Can you process a credit card payment over the phone? 10 minutes later, Sophie Anderson's hospital bill was paid in full. Marcus hung up feeling both relieved and guilty. He'd helped, truly helped, but he'd also crossed a line. He'd made a decision about Emma's life without consulting her, without asking what she wanted or needed. He told himself it was the right thing to do, that she'd understand eventually, that once the stress was gone, she'd see his intentions were good. But deep down he knew he'd made a terrible mistake. 2 weeks later, Emma was reviewing her personal finances when something caught her eye. Her hospital payment plan showed a credit, a payment she hadn't made. Her hands began to shake as she called the hospital. I'm calling about my payment plan for Sophie Anderson, she said carefully. There's a credit on my account I don't recognize. Keys clicked on the other end of the line. Yes, ma'am. The remaining balance was paid in full on February 4th by a Marcus Wellington. Emma's vision blurred. He paid it. Yes, your account is now at zero. She thanked the clerk and hung up, staring at the phone like it had betrayed her. Marcus had paid the bill, without asking, without telling her. He'd erased $13,000 as if it meant nothing, because to him it didn't, but to Emma it was everything. It was her autonomy, her dignity, her hard-won independence. The fragile line between being a respected professional and being reduced to a charity case. It was proof that no matter what he said, Marcus had never truly seen her as an equal. Her hands shook as she dialed his number. Emma, hi. Did you pay my hospital bill? Silence. Marcus. Answer me. Yes, he said quietly. I did. Emma felt like the air had been knocked from her lungs. How did you even get access to my account? I called the hospital billing department. They said anyone could make a payment, so you decided to pay $13,000 without asking me, without giving me any choice. Her voice rose despite herself. You took that decision away from me. I didn't want you to struggle. That wasn't your choice to make. Emma was pacing her office now, her door shut tight. By doing this you treated me like someone who can't manage her own life. Like a child. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? She demanded. Explain how paying my bills without permission isn't treating me like I'm incapable. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke his voice was strained. I saw you struggling. I had the means to fix it. I wanted to take that burden away. You wanted to be the hero, Emma said coldly. You wanted to save me just like you couldn't save Sarah. But I'm not her, and I don't need saving. I never said you did. You didn't have to. Your actions said it for you. Her voice trembled. You see, someone broken that money can fix. That's not fair, isn't it? Emma asked softly. Do you see me as your equal, or as someone who needs your help? The pause before he answered told her everything. I see you as extraordinary, Marcus said finally, strong and capable. But I also see someone who's been carrying too much alone, someone who deserves support. And there it is, Emma whispered. Something inside her finally cracked. You see someone who needs saving. Emma, please, I'll pay you back, she said flatly. Every dollar. It might take years, but I will. I don't want your money. This isn't about what you want. It's about my dignity. She took a shaky breath. I can't work for you anymore, Marcus. Not when you see me as a project instead of a professional. You're not a project. Then why did you do this? She asked. Why make decisions about my family without me? He had no answer. I'll send my resignation this afternoon, Emma said. I'll give 2 weeks to transition the programs. After that, I'm done. Please don't quit, Marcus said urgently. Don't throw away everything we've built. Everything you built, Emma corrected. Exhausted now. With your money in your building under your control. I was fooling myself thinking I was a partner. That's not true. Who owns the space? Who controls the funding? She asked quietly. I was never your equal, Marcus. I was your employee, and employees can be helped, managed or overridden. I never wanted to control you. But you did, Emma said. By deciding what was best for me without asking. She ended the call before he could respond. Emma sat alone in her office, surrounded by the programs she'd built, the lives she'd touched, the purpose she'd finally found. Then she opened her laptop and began writing her resignation letter, because some prices were too high to pay, even for a dream job, even for a man who had started to feel like family, especially for that. Her dignity wasn't for sale, and if Marcus couldn't understand that, then he'd never truly understood her at all. Emma's 2-week notice period felt longer than any stretch of time she could remember. She was professional to the end, drafting detailed transition documents, walking her replacement through every program, every partnership. Jennifer, the woman Marcus had hired, was capable and well-meaning, armed with a master's degree. Emma herself had once suggested was needed, but there was no warmth anymore. No Thursday morning coffees, no easy conversations, no shared glances where understanding passed without words. Emma had rebuilt her walls, and this time she'd built them higher than ever. Daniel tried to help. He listened, he reasoned, he hoped. He crossed a line, Emma told him one afternoon, over lunch. He made decisions about my life without asking me. I can't work for someone who does that. He made a mistake, Daniel said gently. One that came from caring, not control. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, Emma replied. Daniel sighed. What will you do next? I've applied to a few places, a community center, a family services nonprofit. They pay a lot less, I know, but my dignity stays intact. On her last day, Marcus asked to speak with her privately. I'm not changing my mind, Emma said as she sat across from him in his office. I know, Marcus said quietly. He looked older, worn in a way she hadn't noticed before. I just need you to understand something. When I paid the hospital bill, I wasn't trying to control you. I was trying to make amends for something I can never fix. You reminded me of Sarah, strong, overburdened, carrying more than anyone should alone. Emma met his eyes. I understand that, but I'm not your sister, and you can't save me as a substitute for saving her. I know that now, Marcus said heavily. I treated you like a problem to solve instead of a person with agency. I took away your choice. His voice broke. I'm sorry, truly. Emma felt tears rise but held them back. Thank you for saying that, but it doesn't change my decision. I know. Marcus slid an envelope toward her. Your final paycheck, and your accrued time off. She took it without comment. One more thing, he added. The Employee Assistance Fund remains available to former employees for a year, not charity. A benefit, if you ever need it. I'm not your employee anymore. I know. I just wanted you to know it exists. He hesitated. I've also created a scholarship in Sarah's name for students pursuing social work or nonprofit management. The committee is independent, but I wondered if you'd consider serving. Your perspective matters. Emma paused. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. As she packed up her office, photos, children's drawings, handwritten thank you notes, Emma felt something ease inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Marcus hadn't acted out of cruelty. He'd acted out of grief. That didn't excuse it, but it made it human. Daniel helped her carry boxes to her car. I'm going to miss working with you, he said. We can still be friends, Emma replied. Outside of work. I'd like that. He hesitated, then exhaled. Emma, there's something I need to tell you. I should have said it weeks ago. Her heart tightened. I have feelings for you, Daniel said quickly. Real ones. I've felt them since that first coffee. But we worked together. Sophie got sick. Everything felt complicated, and I didn't want to make things harder for you. Emma stared at him. You like me. I do. I like you. I like Sophie. I think you're strong and brilliant and compassionate. And I'd really like to take you on an actual date. No work, no expectations. Just, Emma felt warmth bloom where there had been nothing but exhaustion for weeks. My life is messy, she said honestly. I'm unemployed, I have a kid to raise, and I owe money to a man I'm not speaking to. I don't care, Daniel said softly. I care about you. We can go slow as you need. Emma thought about the way he'd shown up, steadily, quietly, without trying to fix her. About how he treated Sophie with genuine respect. About how he never made her feel small. Okay, she said. Yes. Daniel smiled, relief and joy flooding his face. Really, yes. Emma smiled for the first time in 2 weeks. But you should know, Sophie will have opinions about our first date. Daniel laughed. I wouldn't expect anything less.
and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, Emma felt something like hope. Not because someone had rescued her, but because she'd chosen herself, and found someone willing to walk beside her, exactly as she was. 3 months later, Emma had settled into her new job at the Southside Community Center. The pay was lower than what she'd earned at Wellington Toys, but the work felt honest. She coordinated family support programs, connected struggling parents with resources, and built partnerships rooted in trust, not image. No one questioned her qualifications. No one treated her like a charity case. It was work she was good at, work that mattered. Her relationship with Daniel had grown slowly, deliberately. Real dates, long conversations, shared afternoons at the zoo with Sophie. He showed up to school events, to homework time, to the quiet moments, when Sophie needed reassurance. He listened to her opinions as if they mattered, because to him they did. Emma was starting to believe she could have both, a life built on purpose and one built on love. Then Marcus called. She almost didn't answer. "Hello, Emma, it's Marcus. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I need your help. Not for me, for the families." Her chest tightened. "What happened?" "The board wants to shut down the family programs. They say there's no return on investment. Jennifer's competent, but she doesn't have your ability to explain why this work matters. They won't listen to me, but they might listen to you." Emma closed her eyes, thinking of the families who relied on those programs, the kids who'd finally found safe spaces, the parents who'd stopped feeling so alone. "What are you asking?" "An emergency board meeting. Speak to them. Make the case. I know this doesn't fix what happened between us, but the families need you." "I'll do it," Emma said, "but not for you. For them." "I understand." The meeting was set for the following Tuesday. Emma spent the weekend preparing stories, data, outcomes that numbers alone couldn't capture. Daniel helped her rehearse, holding her hand when her nerves spiked. "Just tell the truth," he said. That's always been enough. The boardroom felt just as imposing as she remembered. 12 people sat around a polished table, measuring her before she spoke. "I'm here for the families," Emma began. "Not as an employee, not as a favor to Mr. Wellington." She told them about Maria, a single mother whose son's grades had improved through homework help. About an elderly grandfather who found community at Saturday story times. About a little girl who'd had her first ever birthday party because someone thought she mattered. "These programs aren't about profit," Emma said steadily. "They're about dignity, about community, about children growing up, knowing they're valued." Robert Lopez scoffed. "We're not a charity. These programs cost money and generate none. What's the cost of not having them?" Emma shot back. "When families struggle alone, when kids feel invisible, you have the resources to make a difference, and you're choosing not to because it doesn't generate revenue." Margaret leaned forward. "We answer to shareholders." "Then let me make it sustainable," Emma said suddenly. The room went quiet. "Give me 3 months. I'll restructure the programs, sliding scale fees, partnerships, grants. If I can't make them break even, shut them down. But give the families 3 more months." Margaret studied her. "Are you asking to return?" "No," Emma said firmly. "I'll consult, with clear authority, full autonomy, no interference." Marcus met her gaze. "You'll have it." The vote passed, narrowly. Emma had 3 months. 3 months to save what she'd built on her terms this time. With autonomy, with respect. Even if it meant working with Marcus again, because some things were worth fighting for, and these families were worth everything. Emma spent the first week of her 3-month deadline barely coming up for air. By day she worked out of the Southside Community Center, meeting with families, listening carefully to what helped and what failed, noting every gap the system left behind. By night she sat at the kitchen table, long after Sophie had finished dinner, surrounded by papers and an aging laptop, researching funding opportunities and sketching out ways to rebuild the programs without turning them into charity. Daniel helped whenever he could. He reviewed proposals, suggested partners, and connected Emma with organizations open to collaboration. But more importantly, he never tried to take control. He listened. He trusted her instincts. He let her lead. Sophie did her homework beside Emma, coloring quietly until one evening she looked up and said, "You should have a garden program." Emma blinked. "A garden program?" "Like Mr. Daniel's friend," Sophie explained, "kids could grow vegetables, and families could keep what they grow. That would help with food." Emma stared at her sister. then smiled slowly. That's actually brilliant. She wrote it down immediately. A garden program wasn't just about food, it was about dignity, education, and ownership. Families creating something for themselves. By the end of the first week, Emma had reshaped the entire structure of the programs. Instead of relying on a single funding source, she envisioned a balanced mix: modest sliding scale fees, school partnerships, foundation grants, and local business sponsorships. Costs could be reduced through volunteers, shared spaces, and donations. Services could expand into food security, adult education, job training, financial literacy, and mental health support, areas families needed and funders supported. When she presented the plan to Marcus at their first official consulting meeting, she insisted they meet at the public library. She needed neutral ground. Marcus reviewed the proposal carefully. "This is comprehensive," he said, "but ambitious. Can you really do this in 3 months?" "I have to try," Emma replied. "I know this community. I've lived this struggle. People trust me." "What do you need from me?" "Access," Emma said, "to space, infrastructure, introductions, and I need you to step back. Let me do this without interference." "You have my word," Marcus said. "You lead. I support only when asked." For the next 8 weeks, Emma worked harder than she ever had. She met with school principals, negotiated after-school contracts, wrote grant proposals late into the night, recruited volunteers, and trained staff. She built partnerships with community gardens, colleges, and mental health organizations, weaving together something that felt less like a program and more like a living network. Daniel was there through it all, reminding her to eat, steadying her when exhaustion crept in. Their relationship deepened naturally, becoming a partnership rooted in respect, not dependence. Sophie thrived in the middle of it, charming volunteers and sponsors with her honesty. Even Marcus kept his promise, providing resources only when Emma asked and never overstepping. By the 6th week, the results were undeniable. Grants were approved, partnerships secured, sliding scale fees covered part of operating costs. Volunteers reduced expenses. The programs weren't just surviving, they were on track to become self-sustaining. But Emma was exhausted, working full-time, consulting nights and weekends, and trying to be present for Sophie was taking its toll. "You're going to burn out," Daniel said one evening. "I only have 6 more weeks," Emma insisted. "And then what?" he asked gently. Before Emma could answer, Sophie looked up and said softly, "You look tired, like when you worked 3 jobs." The words hit hard. "You're right," Emma said quietly. "I need balance." "What if you didn't have to choose?" Daniel asked. Before she could respond, Marcus appeared. "We've been talking," Daniel said. Marcus sat down, nervous. "Watching you work, you're doing exactly what your mother wanted. Helping families with dignity, while building systems that last. What if this became an independent foundation?" he continued. "Named after your mother. You and Daniel as co-directors, full autonomy. I'd be a donor, not a decision maker." Emma's breath caught. "A foundation." "Yes," Marcus said, "because real help isn't about control, it's about trust." Emma asked for time. After Marcus left, Daniel took her hand. "I'd want to do this with you, as equals." Before Emma could answer, Sophie grinned. "He means he wants to marry you." Daniel laughed, then knelt. "Emma Anderson, will you be my partner, in work, in family, in life?" Emma didn't hesitate. "Yes." For the first time in 18 months, she believed in happy endings, not because she was rescued, but because she'd built a life worth sharing. 6 months later, Emma stood in the community center that now housed the Katherine Anderson Foundation. It had launched just 3 months earlier, and was already thriving. She wore a simple cream-colored dress. In 2 hours, she would be married right here. Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Can we talk?" He handed her an envelope. Inside was the final balance of Sophie's hospital bill. Emma inhaled, then nodded. Accepting help with grace wasn't weakness, it was growth. "Thank you," she said, "for learning how to help without control." The wedding was small and perfect. Sophie served as maid of honor, correcting the minister twice, and cheering louder than anyone. Marcus walked Emma down the aisle, not as a savior, but as family. At the reception, Marcus raised a glass. "A little girl once tried to buy a daddy," he said. "She taught me the most important things in life can't be bought. They have to be built with patience, respect, and partnership. As Emma and Daniel danced, surrounded by community and family, Emma finally understood. You couldn't buy a daddy, you couldn't buy love or belonging, but you could build them, slowly, imperfectly, together. That was the real price of love, and it was worth everything.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.